Hey, I'm Doug Smith,
I'm Richard Payton,
and we're 95 North Productions.
and you're about to find out a lot more about us on the Green Room Sessions.
So I'm Doug Smith, one half of 95 North Productions. I'm the DJ of the group. Been DJing now for over 30 years. Married. I'm a lawyer by trade. I have two beautiful children, one in college, one about to go to college. New Jersey to the core. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm a music head for life. Love all kinds of music.
I'm Richard Payton. I am the keyboard player of the group, and I've been loving music all my life, from the small city I grew up in up until moving to Washington, D.C. I'm also married, two kids in college, breaking my bank, and love all kinds of music, but as far as the music that I've been making house music with Doug.
My first album that I ever purchased was Parliament Live, and I got turned on to that album by a neighbor. So I was really big into Parliament when I was growing up, bought all of their albums, but in addition to Parliament, I was influenced by Earth, Wind & Fire. My father used to buy their albums, Rufus and Shaka Khan, and being from the tri-state area, I had the benefit of being exposed to a lot of different music on radio stations like WBLS, WKTU, Kiss FM. So, DJs like Frankie Crocker and some of the Saturday night dance parties with Tony Humphries and Timmy Regisford and Chet Pettibone, all of the club music from back in the day I was exposed to. And then of course, hip hop. I was fortunate enough to be right there when hip hop began, and that was a big, big influence on me as I was growing up. And then, as I got older in the mid 80s, house was the thing. And even though I grew up with it, my first real exposure to house music was 1986 at a club called Club 88 in New Jersey. The DJ was DJ Burt, and it was the first time I had really experienced house in a club, and I was hooked and have been into it ever since.
As far as my influences, excuse me, growing up, Earth, Wind & Fire was my favorite group of all time, R&B group. Also, I was a big fan of Chic, Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, their musical productions. The work they did with Chic, Sister Sledge, Diana Ross, etc. And then also, I loved the productions of Gamble and Huff for Philly International. I mean, just the way they combined hard rhythm sections, but yet smoothed it out with the orchestrations, with the strings, horn arrangements, the messages in their songs, the chords they used. I mean, just everything there, and also with Tom Bell as well. So those were heavy influences, along with anything funk related, whether it's James Brown or Parliament or Funkadelic or Ohio Players, Cameo, etc. Those also became part of my musical DNA. As far as club music, growing up in Petersburg, Virginia, I wasn't really exposed to too much club music. Once I got into college, I had an internship at Bell Labs up in New Jersey, which was right next to New York, and that's when I started hearing WBLS and WKTU and Kiss FM, and started hearing a wider variety of club music, and also more hip hop music as well. I was a senior in high school when Sugar Hill Gang came out. I became hooked with it there. People said it was going to be a novelty, but it lasted, and for some reason it drew me in. So that was another influence. And then as far as house music, I remember in 1986 I heard my first house record. It was like this. I was driving up to Philadelphia, heard it on the radio. I was like, what kind of style of music is this? And then I went to Trax in DC in the summer of '86, and then I really got exposed to house music, and it pulled me in. I was there shopping a record that I had made. The DJ played it, and then I started hearing this other kind of music, and I was like drawn into it there. And so the early Chicago stuff was a big influence on me as well, and also the New Jersey style house that was going on too. So those are all the mixture and the gumbo of musical styles that feed into my musical productions. So I first got into the music industry after I got out of college. I bought a keyboard that had like a little primitive sort of drum machine sequencer in it, and like a 3-track sequencer basically. And I made up a track, put it on cassette, played it around for a few people. They said you should take it to some clubs in DC, so I took it to different clubs. It was one of the biggest thrills of my life when the DJ, the first club I took it to, he played it. I saw people dancing. It was like a feeling I had never had before. And I took it to a few other clubs, and it eventually went to Tracks in DC. And the DJ there was hooked up with a local record label owner. And that song was Ride the Groove, and that came out in '87. And then after that, I didn't do any additional records. I hooked up with Doug and 2 other frat brothers, Mark Barnes and Kevin Suber. And we had a group together, and we were trying to make it in the rap world, and had a few kind of close calls, sort of almost kind of getting on, but it didn't quite happen for us. And so in the meantime, I put out another record in '91, and that also was the same time that our group broke up. And then and I worked on a track that I was putting together. It was like a house track. And at that meeting that we had to break up the group, I gave it to Doug and said, "Hey Doug, what do you think about this?" And he liked it. He said, "I think I can write something to it."
Yeah, and just to back up a little bit, I mean, Richard and I know each other from college.
Right.
So we both went to the University of Virginia, and we connected really after we graduated through a mutual friend, one of his fraternity brothers. You know, I was actually going to graduate school in Richmond, Virginia at VCU, and his fraternity brother wanted me to join their rap group. I was a DJ in college. I used to do all the parties in college. So it's like, yeah, I want you to be the DJ of our rap group. So I agreed to do that while I was in graduate school. And like he said, it really didn't go anywhere. At least we weren't as successful as we would have hoped. So when we broke up in '91 and he gave me this house track, he said, "Hey, you know, do you think you could write some lyrics to it?" And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." We wrote lyrics to it. I forgot who we got to sing it. Some Janice
Franklin. Yes.
And we
and Lynn Lockamy did a demo of it.
That's
too.
right. But the first singer, you know, we did a demo with the first singer. We had 2 different versions of this song. We gave it to a bunch of people: Jeffrey C., Mandrill, Sam Burns, and they started playing it and playing it a lot. And it was Jeffrey C. actually that got us our connection with Strictly Rhythm. He played it for Barry G at Strictly Rhythm over the phone, and she was like, "I want that record," and reached out to us. And that's really what launched us as 95 North Productions, although we weren't known as that at the time. We were just Richard Payton and Doug Smith. And things took off from there.
So as far as what it was like to work on our first time working on a track together, in a way it's a split answer, because the first track we worked on wasn't the first one that got released, even though it was the first one that was signed, if you can follow along. So as I mentioned, I came up with a track and I didn't have any idea what the concept would be or the lyrics or anything. Gave it to Doug. Doug came up with this concept called Shattered Love, which is my man done done me wrong kind of song. And you know, and years later I looked at it. I mean, because he's sort of like a hip hop head and sort of like from a rap mindset, there were a lot of lyrics in that record. It could almost have been a rap.
Right.
But anyway, so he came up and we were in my basement. So I played the track and he started singing the melody to it. And he can carry a tune, you know. And I was like, that's it. And so we just had to find a singer. And we went through quite a few vocalists. We found one that we liked. But the record company thought her voice was maybe like a little too sweet. And then we auditioned some more women from UVA that we knew. And Lynn Lockamy was one of those. And we picked her. She came up, laid down the vocals, and we thought, because she really nailed it, and Strictly passed on it. So we were back to the drawing board. And then they eventually had Brenda Braxton, one of their artists, sing it. Yeah. So that came out later that fall, almost like a year after we had submitted it. But in the meantime, I remember I went home, it must feel like Thanksgiving, to visit my parents, and I took my keyboard with me, came up with this track, and I was trying to sort of emulate this track called that string track. I think it was by this group UPI.
Yeah,
Strictly.
yeah, I remember
So
that.
it's kind of like that kind of a feel. I had, these chords with the violins in it and this kind of swinging beat. And wasn't quite finished. I had to kind of lay it out, and I let Doug hear that. And then we worked on arranging it some more. And the key was he came up with the sample that we wanted to use.
Which was Lolita Holloway, of course. At the time, everybody was sampling, Lolita Holloway and other divas from the 70s. So yeah, we actually had a couple of versions of that. And that was really the first record we released as a house duo on Strictly Rhythm. Thank you. Of course, as soon as Strictly Rhythm heard the Lolita Holloway samples, they were like, no, get those out of there and get someone else to sing it. So the version that came out does not have the Lolita Holloway samples in it, but we do have a version that does. That's the one that I would play. But I will say this, though, that when I think about the first tracks we worked on together, really the first tracks were the hip hop tracks. When he was first teaching me how to use the keyboard, because when we started making music, I didn't know anything about sequencing. I didn't know any my way around the keyboard, but he taught me, and we started making some of the loops we started taking for the hip hop thing is kind of what we worked on together. But the Strictly Rhythm record, Thank You, by Scram was our first house record.